Hey there, Daniel Fava here, and if you don't know me, I'm the host of the Private Practice Elevation podcast, where I share online marketing strategies and interviews to help private practice owners attract more clients and scale their businesses. The Private Practice Elevation podcast is part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts, and I'm super excited to be a part of this network alongside Gordon and the great work he's doing. If you haven't discovered the Private Practice Elevation podcast yet, you can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd love for you to join me as we explore topics like building an effective website for your private practice, search engine optimization, content marketing, and copywriting, as well as my conversations with experienced private practice owners about scaling a practice, outsourcing, team leadership, and all things that will help you elevate your business and create the life you love. Be sure to check us out at privatepracticeelevation.com for resources and content to help you in your online marketing journey.
A little over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And this is episode number 261. And I'm Gordon Brewer. Glad you're with me. Glad you've stumbled upon us. Or if you're coming back for more, glad you're here with me listening to the podcast. And also, I just want to say Happy New Year again, because we're still, I think still trying to get used to writing 2023. I know I was filling out my planner earlier this week, or last week rather, and went through all the pages and I'd put down 2022 on the pages. So having to get used to that little change already. But anyway, hope you're having a good week, good weekend, whenever you might be listening to this. I'm really looking forward to you hearing from my guest today, Samantha Cimo. And Samantha is, I really enjoyed my conversation with Samantha. Samantha is a graduate student, and I loved hearing her story and just really was touched by her enthusiasm for our fields in mental health. And really, I think she's going to be a wonderful clinician once she gets through with her schooling. She already is. I mean, just I know for a lot of people, going to graduate school is kind of the an uphill struggle sometimes, but you could certainly tell by my conversation with Samantha, she is absolutely having a great time in graduate school. But what I love about this conversation is that she allows herself to be vulnerable and just talks about her passions in our field. And I really feel like as I said near the end of the interview, I said, I'll put my old fart hat on. And so I'm going to do that again. I'm really glad that we've got people like Samantha that are coming into the field, because I think we'll be in good hands in the long run. So, but anyway, we'll get to my interview with Samantha and also get for her to tell you a little bit about her podcast, which is titled Good You, GOOD, you, question mark. So, anyway, it's a really good podcast. So anyway, not to get too far down the rabbit trail here before we get to her. But one of the things I wanted to let you know about is I'm in the process of trying to get the Google Workspace for Therapists course updated. For those of you that maybe have been following me for a while, know that I have several courses on the Teachable platform. And one in particular that's been a really popular course is the one that I put together on using Google Workspace in your practice. And it's just titled Google Workspace for Therapists. And as a result of that course, I also started a Facebook group that has just really grown just exponentially over the last couple of years. There's a little over 9,000 people in that group, which just blows my mind still. But anyway, it's the Google Workspace for Therapists Facebook group that's there. But anyway, Google Workspace is constantly changing. And Google Workspace, if you're not familiar with it, Google Workspace is a paid subscription with Google, and it gives you all of the tools that you might be getting with a free account. But the big thing is that if you get the paid account, you can make it HIPAA secure or HIPAA compliant, which is how I got interested in Google Workspace several years ago with that. But not to get too long-winded here, I'm in the process of doing some updates to that course. And one of the things I'm going to do this time is I'm going to invite people to be collaborators on that course with me. So if you are using Google Workspace in your practice or in some way, and you've got a hack or a little or some sort of special way in which you use Google Workspace in your practice, I'd love for you to apply to be a contributor to the updates of the course. And you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS updates and apply there. And needless to say, it's a Google form that you fill out, and we'll begin our conversation. But I'm excited about doing it in this way. I just love collaborating with people and being able to do things in that way. And if you're curious about using Google Workspace in your practice, the course is available, and you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS course, and that'll get you to the landing page where you can enroll in the course. And one thing I'll say about that is if you enroll in the course, you will get lifetime access plus access to any of the updates in the course. So it's a good deal for you in that way. And also, just one little secret here is once I update the course, the price will go up a little bit, just because I need to do that every now and then. So anyway, go check it out. practiceoftherapy.com/GWS course. And you can find out more about that. And also here, before we get to my conversation with Samantha, I'd love for you to hear more from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Is your practice running like a well-oiled machine? One of the keys to a successful private practice is having the right systems and processes in place to make things run as smoothly as possible. With a powerful, secure, and streamlined system like TherapyNotes, you'll have more time to spend with what matters most, your clients. TherapyNotes is a complete practice management system with everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with patients remotely, create rich documentation, and bill insurance right at your fingertips. Their streamlined software is accessible wherever and whenever you need it. It's the EHR that Gordon uses in his practice. By using TherapyNotes, your clinical records will be secure with less paperwork, which means you can give a much better quality of care. TherapyNotes integrates all aspects of your practice to help you improve patient care. Be sure and check them out today by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. And be sure to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really glad for you all to get to know Samantha Cimo. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm very excited.
Yes, and what's fun for me is that you're a student, you're in graduate school, and really passionate about what we're doing, and you've also started your own podcast, and we'll talk about that some too. But as I start with everyone, Samantha, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your journey and how you've landed where you've landed?
Well, it for my short 26 years, it's been a long journey. It feels, um, but it's gone from every profession that you could think of. But mainly, I had initially intended on taking over my parents' restaurant. I think it was the easier route for me, and that's what I just kind of made myself believe that that was what I was supposed to do with my life. I also had been working there since after Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana,
Mm.
um, which I was 8 or 9 years old when I started working as a cashier. And I worked there every year of my life, and I still even work there every now and then to get some
Uh-huh.
extra cash in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
So when they retire, I am also retiring. But when I realized that that wasn't for me, it was after I had graduated with my undergrad in business management. And I worked at the restaurant for about 2 years full time for the first time. Um, that I realized that this was actually really harming my mental health.
Mm.
If anyone has ever worked with their family, um, it could be really hard to separate work from family issues. And a lot of those things get taken home or taken personally, and or people forget that you're talking to a family member. And so, I had been in counseling since I was 19. I've always been, and you'll hear a lot of counselors or counseling students say this, but they've always been the person that their friends go to for advice or to talk
Mm-hmm.
to, be the mediator, be the level-headed person. And that was me. And I enjoy being able to help people that way. Um, so I knew that I needed to go into counseling. And once I started getting that ball rolling, it was almost as if this was the path I was meant to take from the beginning, because everything started to come immediately, one after the other. And of course, there were bumps in the road, but none of them were enough to deter me from going this route.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm in my practicum and actually getting to work with clients, I'm realizing more than ever that this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That story sounds very familiar. The other thing that I think all of us have in common in this field is that we recognize our own issues that we're working through, and just have a passion for helping others in the same way we've been helped through our own therapy. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think
Mm-hmm.
about this often, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
funny because in my first class at the school that I attend was a theories class for the theories of counseling, and I learned about Adlerian theory. And I go
Mm-hmm.
to my counselor and I was like, I don't know what it is, but I really like Adlerian. And she's like, it's probably because I'm an Adlerian therapist. And I was like, oh, how
Oh
funny.
yes, yes, that's funny. One kind of strange fun fact when you mentioned Adler, I just one of my therapists that works in my practice went to the Adler Institute, so that's she
That's so
pulls in a lot
awesome.
of pulls in a lot of that. Jenna, shout out to Jennifer, she's part of my staff, but yeah, so for you, Samantha, what are you learning about? I know you've got a podcast. Why don't you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I started my podcast back in January. It's called Good You question mark
Mm-hmm.
therapy podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with the name. It took me a bit, but it's just my response when people ask how I'm doing, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's response when you get asked how you are. Um, and a lot of the times that's not the accurate response or the
Mm-hmm.
response you really want to say. But I think us as people have been taught to not burden others with those types of emotions, or your problems. And what I wanted to do with my podcast is to spread mental health awareness and and destigmatize seeking mental health help, because it's not, seeking mental health help is for everybody. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
for people who have disorders, who have more things that went on in their life. It can be for everyone, everyday problems that people go through. And I truly believe that seeking mental health help is just as important as seeking physical health help
Yeah.
from your doctor.
Sure. And I think, one of the things that's I think has we've landed on and I say this with caution, post pandemic. I think everyone had a common experience of course, being isolated and being confronted with kind of their internal stuff. And so maybe a silver lining from the whole COVID pandemic is that it made the topic of mental health and talking about mental health less stigmatized, because everybody was
Absolutely.
experiencing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I see that. And, I see it a lot from the younger generation. And I always give them some praise, because they, like, when I look on TikTok, I'll see teenagers just talking about, oh, today I talked about with my therapist. And it's so great that they feel that comfortable
Mm-hmm.
to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think of years ago, I mean, when I first started counseling, I don't think I really told too many people about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just how it was looked at. A lot of people still, unfortunately, look at having a therapist as something's wrong with you, but really
Mm-hmm.
nothing is wrong with you. You're a
Right.
person with everyday problems that are going
Yeah.
on, that just need someone to talk to with about.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's what's interesting with this whole phenomenon, as you were talking about this, I started thinking about this. Right now we're experiencing, at least here in the United States, a big shortage of mental health providers. So, like people like you that are in graduate school that are, moving into the field, you've got some pretty good job security ahead of you with all of this. And I guess it's a matter of deciding on the path that you want to take with all of that. But yeah, I think going back to that, I think a part of the shortage of mental health providers is that it's not so much that there's any less providers, it's just that more people are seeking help.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And
Mm-hmm.
and now they do make things, like they do make counseling more accessible through telehealth for people.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do know that there are platforms that are not the best to go through for telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I won't name any of them specifically,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
but make sure to do your research before looking into those things. I think if you can find someone in private practice or in a clinic that takes telehealth, um, teletherapy, I would definitely go with that before these bigger corporations, because these things do get involved in your therapy,
Sure.
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, yeah. You make a very good point, and not to get too far on a tangent. I was approached by one of as I like to say, the tech companies that's in mental health, and
Mm-hmm.
to be a sponsor of the podcast. And I kind of, when I did my research on it, I realized that there were some questionable practices with a lot of those companies as far as really being able to protect client confidentiality well and that sort of thing. So I just politely declined not to,
Yeah.
to do that. So, but yeah. So as you're moving through graduate school and you're getting pretty close to graduating, is that correct?
December of 2023. We're nearing
Awesome.
the end.
Yes, you are. You are. As we say in the South, you're in the short rows now. So,
Yes, indeed.
yeah. So, yeah. So, as you're thinking ahead about your career, what is it? What's kind of your hopes and dreams, and where do you see yourself?
Oh man, I I don't know about anything specific. I think I went into the program saying this is what I want to work with. This is the population I want to work with, and they even said from the beginning, don't get yourself stuck on that, because you will end up in a place for practicum or internship that completely changes your world. And that
Mm-hmm.
happened to me. I definitely didn't want to work with anyone under the age of 18 because it wasn't because of them. It was because I felt uncomfortable working with their parents in that
Mm-hmm.
situation. Because and I think that was a lot of projection on my own part that I realized later on. And I realize now too, working with the teenage population that I am right now, is that there aren't a lot of counselors that work with teens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they are probably one of the most needed populations to work with because
Mm-hmm.
they are at that developmental stage that is about to become a young adult. And yeah, they need the help. They're still at home. They still are in this place where they're fighting for independence, yet they don't have the independence. And you can be their advocate. Where I currently am with my practicum, we see a lot of mandated clients. So one thing that I find funny is that I didn't want to work with the parents, but now these parents really have no choice but to work with me. So it can
Mm-hmm.
kind of worked out in the end. But in the end, I know that a lot of the teens that initially come don't want to be here when they first
Mm-hmm.
come. But to see them get through so much in such short sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and want to stay on, want to keep coming back, that is such a win for me.
Mm-hmm.
At that, it speaks for itself in that. And I also ended up getting hired at my practicum site,
Awesome.
to where, yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
this was a really great semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I was put to lead our teen mentoring program,
Mm-hmm.
to where we are looking at how teen to teen mentoring can be very beneficial. I know for me, I've heard a lot of like adult to teen mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
like Big Brother programs and things like that. But this, we're looking at almost like a group counseling, but take on to mentoring each other type thing. So it's in the works, and it's not a lot of information out there. So it's really cool that we're testing the waters with it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But these teens are really liking the things that we're doing with it, and they're enjoying the process as well. Obviously, some don't want to be there either. And it is part of their treatment for their mandated treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, like, we are seeing people have fun, and coming back. And at the end of the day, even if someone is mandated, they don't have to come back. It is their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even if they are okay with the consequences that come with it. Um, so seeing people come back is awesome and getting something from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, what you describe, I worked in kind of before I went into private practice, I worked for a nonprofit organization that mainly worked with at-risk children and youth. And so it sounds like you're working with a similar population. And I will say that that was one of the greatest learning experiences I had, particularly right out of graduate school, because I was doing, and you talked about too, which resonated with me, is working with the parents. I was worked in the program I worked in first was an intensive in-home therapy program, and so the primary work that we did to help these young people was really working with the parents around parenting skills and just all of those kinds of things. So yeah, it's invaluable. You're getting an invaluable education through that you're learning stuff that you never learn in the classroom.
Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
I have the best supervisors that
Mm-hmm.
anyone could ask for, truly. I never expected to have such amazing coworkers or supervisors that, um, we learn in ethics how we have to be able to talk about these things that make us uncomfortable, about transference, countertransference, and I remember thinking, because ethics was also in my first semester, and I was like, how are you going to feel comfortable telling your supervisor this? But the first day, like I felt so comfortable. They made me feel like they would understand that these things happen. And obviously, now that just completed my fifth semester, I know that these things happen. Where, you know, I remember a dad sitting in my session and my heart was racing. And I was like, I had to think for a second, like, why am I feeling so uncomfortable? And I got supervision afterwards. And the first thing she asked me was, so where is your uncomfortableness around authority figures? And I was like, oh, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she gave me a nice reframe of looking at it like I'm coming to help from a place of wanting to help, and I am. But thinking of it that way in the session, in an intake, has really helped me. So just things like that. Like at first, I don't know. There's a level of self-awareness you have to have. Like the feeling that I had in there, I knew I had to talk about it after.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's great. And that, the other thing I would say about that is that the importance of which we kind of hit on a little bit, the importance of those of us in this space, this mental health space, of number one is continuing to get supervision or do consultations around the clinical stuff, just as an ongoing thing. And I think depending on where the location or the place that you're working can help with that. I know in private practice, having a group practice, that's been one of the things that's been nice for our group, is that we're able to bounce cases off of each other and talk about those things. And then the other part that you kind of allude to there, Samantha, which I think is real important, is getting our own therapy and continuing to do that work.
Absolutely. I am such an advocate for therapists having therapists. I think it is so important, and it actually, I feel like, should be a requirement to like we have our continued education credits that we have to get. I think it's important that we should also require therapists to see a counselor at least maybe once a month or something like that, to talk about things that they're experiencing, because I do know a handful of counselors that do not see counselors. Do not see counselors.
Yeah.
Even my own cohorts that don't, who have never been to counseling.
Yeah.
And a part of that is, how are you supposed to empathize with the client that's sitting across from you if you've never been in their seat?
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about that is that you mentioned the transference and stuff. The other thing that can happen, particularly for those of us that work with people that are dealing with trauma, there's a phenomenon, and I've had some guests on previous episodes where we talked about this, just vicarious trauma, in that people are coming to us and they're handing us some very heavy stuff. And we have to be able to process that within ourselves. I mean, part of empathy is that you have a feeling towards that. And so being able to process that, best way to do that is through another therapist.
Absolutely. And going off that, if you have been doing this for so long that you aren't, if you feel like you aren't being affected by such strong emotions and life experiences from your client, that is also a problem. If you feel like that is not affecting you, that you've become completely numb to that kind of conversation, that alone should make you want to seek counseling.
Sure. Yeah. So to change gears a little bit, kind of going back to a question earlier, what do you envision for yourself over the next 5-6 years?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. Well, I have one more year of graduate school, and then it'll take about 2 years to get licensed, which I plan to just stay at the site that I am now for all that time. And not sure where I'll go from there. I do believe I want to stay with the population with teens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I feel like I've been taking um, my life as having these goals, but not trying to look too far out. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's helped me a lot in this time that I've just kind of let things come to me. And things have been coming to me when I stop trying to plan out too far ahead. So
Mm-hmm.
after getting my license, we'll see kind of what opportunities are there.
Yes, yes. Well, keep at it because you'll get there. It'll go by fast. At least that's
Yeah,
my
it's
recollection
flying.
of how it goes by fast and things fall into place. So again, to change gears a little bit, what sort of things are you discovering through your podcast, and what sort of conversations are you hearing, and what has stuck out for you?
Oh, so many. Even though I've only had a little over 30 episodes, I've had a lot of conversations and networked with some great people. I've heard personal stories of growth. I've had people that have come on and talked about their experience as a counselor and um, their specialties that they work with. I think a lot of the things that always stick out to me, and this is just how I feel like I learn best, is personal stories. So anything like that is type of story is what has stuck out to me a lot. So I had someone come on and talk about their substance abuse journey and their sobriety journey,
Awesome.
which was really, really, an absolutely awesome and heavy episode. And I had someone come on and talk about neurodivergence. She is diagnosed OCD and has autism and ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of talked about the experience of what that's like, and hearing people kind of throw those terms around so nonchalantly,
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Oh, I have to have these things in order because of my OCD," and how hurtful that is for her to hear. Um, Stories like that have been so important for me to hear because it allows me, I believe, to empathize with the person sitting across from me. And not only have those personal stories help me, but the stories from clinicians just makes me so excited for growth. And they've taught me so much. It's honestly made me feel like I am ahead of a lot of the people in my classes during the time that I started, because I was getting a lot of information beforehand from
Mm-hmm.
other counselors. But it's been a really fun journey, and I
Wow.
hope to continue it um, and be more consistent soon,
Mm-hmm.
because this semester was definitely one of the heavier loaded semesters with work and school. But I do want to keep it as a hobby because I don't want it to be something that ever gets that
Yeah.
affects my mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to listening to it, and um, yeah, because I think that's one of the things that I've learned. Not to as I tell my clients sometimes, I'm going to put my old fart hat on. Um, is is that when people can be vulnerable and tell their stories, it creates healing on a in two ways. I mean, for the person that's telling the story, but also the effect it has for people hearing the story, and to be able to hear it in a non-judgmental way, and being able to um, to just there's a connection that occurs. I mean, I think about veterans. I've worked with a lot of veterans over the years, and one of the things that I know works best in helping them deal with their trauma is to be able to talk to another vet who has also been through trauma, and that they understand each other in the situation at a level I could never provide. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think I'm really glad that you're doing that work of the podcast and letting people tell their stories.
Thank you. Yes, that to vet experience reminds me of the body keeps the score.
Yes.
That how they are able to dive into those stories and not feel almost like it's too much of a shock value for this person. This person can hear it and hear me and know my experience with no judgment.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Awesome. Well, Samantha, I want to be respectful of your time and tell folks if they want to reach out to you, how they can do that.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much again for having me on. I really enjoyed talking to you today. You can follow the podcast Instagram at goodyou.therapy on Instagram. And you can definitely go follow the podcast too, would be great. Good You Therapy Podcast. It's on all available streaming networks for podcasts. And yeah, give it a listen. If you have any suggestions for topics, please feel free to message me. I'd love to hear it.
Awesome. Hope to have you back.
I would absolutely love that. I'd be honored.
Awesome. Take care. Well, again, a big thanks to Samantha for being on the podcast. And I hope to get her back on the podcast and catch up with her later, just to see how she's going in her journey. She is exactly the kind of guest that I'm looking for. People that are enthusiastic about our profession, but also thinking about it and maybe a little bit unconventionally, in little different ways. I guess that's fair to say. But anyway, check out Samantha's stuff. You'll find that links here in the show notes, and be sure to check out her podcast. And it's just titled Good You. And so, it's, a clever title that she came up with. So, but anyway, be sure and check that out wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're interested in contributing to the updates of the Google Workspace for Therapists course, be sure and do that and apply. And you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS updates. And also, you can just go to practiceoftherapy.com, and there's a button at the top there for all the courses that I offer through the Teachable platform of various topics and private practice. And hopefully you'll find that find those helpful. And one thing I want to say here before we close out, I would really like to give a shout out to all of the folks, all of those colleagues of mine that are part of the Psychcraft Network. We started the Psychcraft Network of podcasts in 2022, and I'm so glad to have those colleagues as part of my journey, and be sure and check them out. So go to psychcraftnetwork.com, and you can see all the great podcasts that are part of the network. And hopefully you'll find some more good podcasts to listen to. So be sure and check that out. And also, just real quickly before we go, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. And you can find out more about them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes. And be sure and use the promo code Gordon, GORDON, to get to try them out for 2 months for free. And so that's that. And also be sure and take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, or follow the podcast. I keep forgetting that a lot of the podcatchers like Apple Podcasts and Spotify use the term follow rather than subscribe. So, but anyway, wherever you listen to your podcast, be sure and follow us wherever you listen, and be sure and tell your friends about the podcast as well. So take care, folks. Looking forward to this year. I've got some more great guests lined up for the podcast, and love being on this journey. And thank you for following me. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft Network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.